So it is recording. Hello there. Thank you for
Hello.
joining me. Let's start with the basics. Please tell me your name and what do you do in general?
Okay, my name is Ekaitz. I'm a software developer, let's say, but I studied telecommunication engineer, and this changed a little bit my life. I started working in free software, and nowadays I mostly write free software, and I'm a freelance that codes and also does engineering, let's say.
Okay. Interesting. So telecommunications engineering, what is that exactly? Like for a layperson, for
Yeah,
example.
that's a very good question. The name of the studies is kind of a very special here in Spain, but the idea is that it was covering everything related with the telecommunication part of the, I don't know, of the country, let's say. So we know about, I think it was related with some kind of a ministry or something like that. I don't remember very well, but the idea is that we know about signals, radio, also network protocols and communication between computers. So there is a part of just the physics about it, and also the how do you share the communication, especially in radio stuff. That was very strong part of the studies long time ago. And then they added the telematics, let's say, that is informatics for communication. And then there's also a part of electronics that is related with how do you design something that covers the physics and covers the communication between computers. So that's more or less the idea of the studies. So it's when I studied, it was 5 years. Nowadays, it's aligned with Bologna plan, so it's 4+1.5 or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, that's more or less the thing.
Okay, so how do you go from that to the software side of things?
Yeah, so we had some part of software in our university. It's kind of mandatory if you're trying to learn about computers and stuff, but it wasn't very strong. But we had a teacher there that was kind of a free software guy, and he told to us a little bit about free software, and we already saw that some computers had some Kubuntu installation in some of the laboratories, and I started using that for programming a little bit of what was it? I think it was like some kind of a network related laboratory or something like that. That we have to code in Java or something. I don't remember.
Okay.
And then I started to dig into it and listening to this teacher that sadly he passed away a couple of years ago. I started taking a look into it. This teacher then managed my final project, and I took part in KDE, and that's it. And that was almost 15 years ago, and I'm still doing it. I moved my computer to a Linux distribution. It was very simple at the beginning, but then I started digging, and here we are.
Yeah, very good. When you contacted me, you told me that you do Guix development. So you are a contributor to Guix, and you are an expert,
Yes.
and we will dive into all that.
Well, not that much of an expert, but
But you learned along the way, basically. You developed expertise as you went.
Yeah.
So, of course, I want you to tell me about what you do specifically in Guix. But before we go there, let's go a little bit to the beginning. Like, how do you go from a student who learns about Kubuntu, KDE, to eventually be doing Guix work and really deep stuff?
Oh, that's
Like, what
weird.
is your story like? Like somebody who just started.
So
Asking
I
for a
always like
friend.
to, I always like to learn things. So, free software lets me learn things, right? And I started using it in my home just as a user, trying to learn new things. When I learned programming at university, we learned a little bit of C and then a little bit of C++, very badly explained in my opinion, but that's another story. And I had like some kind of, I was hooked to that. And when I worked in my final project, I also did some KDE development, but it was very poor. And I realized that I could be doing something bigger than that and understand properly what I was doing. So a couple of months later, I was hired by a company here that made some free software related things, and they were very, how can I say, they were very hacky in the way that they were like pushing you to take a look to the solutions they developed. They liked to use Linux. They liked to use Debian machines in their clients and stuff. And I was really pushed to check what I was doing. I was just how can I say, a technician. I wasn't I wasn't hired as an engineer or anything like that, but they pushed me to read things, to change things and stuff. I was fired for many reasons. And a little bit later, I started to work as an R&D engineer in a company. And in there, the work was just making things like proof of concepts for the company, right? So during this time, when I entered there, I didn't know very well how to code. I was kind of, how can I say, I could write simple solutions, but I wasn't able to code like in big projects and stuff. And I didn't know anything about the web, and I learned about the web there. A coworker teach me everything I needed to make a project. In fact, it was fun because my boss told me, you have experience with the web, so make this project. And I was like, I have no experience with the web. And he said, okay, anyway, do it. And I did it finally with the help of my coworker, and I learned a lot. So this kind of way of making things that I never did before, it was always in my life, right? Since I was a kid, and later on in my life have been appearing even in a higher degree, right? So that small anecdote is a little bit of how can I say, an explanation of my whole life. Later, I left this company and I decided to be a freelance, and I didn't know how to do it, and I was afraid. But well, 8 years later, here we are, right? And how did I enter Guix? I have a friend that he's in the networks. He's called Pig Noir.
Sorry, what was that? Pig?
Pig Noir. He's French. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, but his name is Felix. And this guy told me once about Nix. He's a Nix developer. He's a very big guy in the Nix community, and I was into Clojure and Scheme at that time a little bit. So he told me about Guix, and I said, okay, I can take a look into that. I wasn't a very heavy on GNU guy, right? But I like the ideas of GNU, and I think it kind of matches what I like from a software distribution, and I started using it as a package manager. And then a few months later, and I installed that as a distribution because I realized I was taking part in the development more than in any other distribution before. And finally, some years later, here we are. I'm part of the community.
Fascinating. So Felix is a Nix developer, but suggested Guix to you, I guess, because of your experience with the Lisp languages.
Yes. That's it.
So the idea was, well, since you are doing Scheme, you might as well take this route.
Yeah, because the guy is more into a Haskell world, and that's what Nix is more into. That he suggested that, and it was a very good suggestion.
Yeah, good. So what do you do with Guix? Of course, you use it, but what do you do as a developer, like you specifically? What is your contribution?
Well, as a committer in Guix, I don't do much, honestly. Like, I just, when I have packages or fixes or simple things, I just send them and they are recorded, and that's it. I don't have to ask anyone. Like, if you, for example, you wanted to change something in Guix, you have to go through a process of review and stuff. I don't have to go through that, and I can review patches by other people, and I can commit them directly, and I don't have to ask anyone. So that's what I do. Basically, when I need something from Guix, I just change it and I push it. That's it. And that doesn't happen very often because I have many things at the same time. I'm working on many projects, but what I try to do is to be like kind of active in the IRC, listen to newcomers a little bit, try to help them, and also try to encourage people to contribute, because I think we are missing committers. We are missing people that reviews other people's changes, and that's the biggest bottleneck that we have. So we need more people, and we need to encourage the people that contributes to take more responsibility in the distribution. That's mostly my work as a committer in Guix, but most of my other kind of work that I have been doing for the last few years is related with Guix somehow, not directly, but it is related with Guix. And that, if you want, we can talk about. It's the bootstrapping work and all that.
Yes. So I definitely want to go into that. But before I go into that, just for me to be clear on this point, you don't have to go through the review in Guix because you are a developer of Guix.
Yes.
So you have gained that privilege, but somebody who gets
Yes.
started has to go through that process.
Yes, of course. If I commit something that is broken, somebody is going to pull my ear, right? They're going to say, okay, you cannot do this. But of course, the first process of just pushing changes I can do. Not
Okay.
to every branch, but I think that I can do it in the master branch, but there are specific branches for teams and stuff, and I cannot push to all of them. I could ask for access, and they probably will give me access. Do you want me to explain what is the process to become a committer in Guix, maybe?
Yeah, please. Since we also want to encourage people to take part in the process, I think it's good for them to have an idea. Like, of course, I install Guix. What's the next thing for me to get involved?
So yeah, Guix is kind of, I can explain a little bit how does contributing to Guix looks like. So when you want to contribute to Guix, Guix is a huge repository. Like you git clone it, and it's a huge thing, and it has all the packages inside of that repository. But it also has all the machinery that lets you parse these packages and install them and all that. So there are several parts to it, and one of the most touchable one is the packages themselves, right? Because they are kind of it looks like configuration, but it's a programming, right? It's a code file, but it looks like some kind of a configuration file that you can copy from one and push to another, and more or less changing a little bit of things, you can make a package. So the first thing a person would probably do is add some packages to Guix or fix some packages in Guix. And yeah, it's just a huge repository. So you take part on it, you send a couple of pull requests to the Codeberg that we have now. A couple of months ago or some months ago, it was through email and this kind of a very lengthy process, and it was kind of how can I say, uncomfortable for newcomers, but we changed to Codeberg. I don't know if the change was good or bad, but there you go. It's just opening a pull request. You open a pull request, you go through a review process that is probably a little bit slow at the moment. We wish it was faster, and then your changes are going to be added to Guix, or maybe not. If they are not great, maybe not. But let's say they are. You do this several times with things you like, you enjoy, you need, whatever. And when your amount of contribution is significant, let's say, I don't know, maybe 20 commits, maybe 40, whatever, depends on the case. And you are known in the community a little bit. They know you because you did things that are interesting for everyone. So then you could ask for access. And asking for access, if I'm not mistaken, requires you of sending an email with, like, you need to, how is it said? Like, you need someone to vote for you. At least three other committers, they need to vote for you. So you need to convince 3 people. 3 is not that much. Like, we are 40 something or 50 or something like that. So if you are not friends with one, maybe you are a friend with another. So it's very easy to. And I think this is documented in the Guix documentation, but you need to send an email, I think, to the maintainers, that there are few of them, there are 2, 3, I don't remember. You send an email to them and saying that these specific people, they have voted for you. And then there's kind of a little bit of bureaucracy, but it's a simple thing that you have to send your public key, so you can sign your commits, and a couple of things more. That the process is that. It's just you need to do something important for Guix, or important, right? It has to be enough to be considered like, okay, you did something. That's okay. You have good intentions in the project. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And just ask for access. That's mostly it.
Okay. Sounds pretty straightforward, and kind of how all the software projects, the free software projects, are governed, the large ones.
Yes.
Like Emacs is very similar. I remember in my case when I got commit access to emacs.git, it was basically like that. Like I reached a point where I was kind of known. I made a few commits here and there, and eventually they were like, okay, here is just push, don't ask. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very natural process, right? If you start, for example, in Guix, you're gonna start just sending packages, and you may not understand very well how Guix works internally, and it doesn't matter. You can get commit access because your work at packaging things is important for us, right? So you don't need to understand everything. I do not understand everything on Guix. I wish I did, but it's as simple as that. You may be an expert, for example, in Python, so you may be part of the team too that is more like focused on maintaining Python related packages or whatever, right? You can have a specific expertise that is important for us, and you will be welcome in the community.
Yeah, that's important because, of course, we also have, it's very common in our space, in the computer space, to have people who feel like they are an imposter because it's like, well, I don't know everything, therefore I am a fraud, right? Which is not true.
Yeah, I have a case of this. We can be
yourself?
specific on one person. No, it's not me. But there is a guy in Guix now. His name is Cayetano. The guy is like sending a lot of packages because he works as I think is a hardware engineer. He works in FPGA related stuff, and he sends a lot of packages. And I've been pushing him to, dude, ask for commit access so you don't have to go through the revision process, and it's better for everyone. You can push whatever you need. That's going to be in Guix, updated by yourself, and you don't have to, spend the time of a committer that is going to look at your things, and you are doing a very good job with your packages. You don't need revision. So just go. And he said, no, because I don't understand the Guix things and stuff. It doesn't matter. Do your thing. Like just be a committer, and your work is going to be more effective, and ours too. So it's better for everyone, right?
Yes. Very good. So yeah, if you are watching this, yeah, do it. Okay, so tell me about the specifics of your work now in Guix. So the part about what you do exactly.
Yeah, so I think Julian did a very good job explaining that to you, like how all this thing works especially the, how is it called? The reproducibility. But I'm more focused in the
Sorry, just to say something, just for something who is listening to this or watching this. You are talking about Julian, who was in the previous Prot Asks video, who talked about NICs and reproducibility. And
yes, that's it. Yeah. So there's this reproducibility part. The reproducibility part means that we want to achieve that my build of a specific package is exactly the same that your build in your machine, right? And in order to do that, we need to somehow copy the whole environment that I have and copy it in your machine, so your build is exactly the same. This means exactly the same compiler, exactly the same libraries. All of that has to be identical, right? That's one thing, and that's super important because that lets me know, like, we can make sure this way that everything that is in my software is in yours and nothing else, right? Nothing else. That's the most important part, in my opinion. So we can push this a little bit further, right? And he mentioned this how is it called? This trust in trust attack, right? So let's recover that and let's talk a little bit about it. So Ken Thompson designed a compiler that was able to know if it was compiling another compiler or if it was building some other software, right? If it was building another compiler, what it did, it was copying this strange behavior I'm going to tell you about right now. So he was infecting the next compiler with his stuff. And when he was building some software, it was adding, for example, some vulnerability on some malicious thing. So he designed that because he wanted to explain that most of the compilers nowadays, they depend on a previous version of this compiler or another compiler to be built. So if I want to build GCC 15, I don't know if that is a real version, but it doesn't matter. 15, I probably need GCC 9, and that probably needs GCC 7, and that needs GCC whatever. And we can go back to the beginning of time. And that's a very problematic thing, because if the first of these compilers has this virus inside, it would affect to all the chain of compilers, and all of them will be corrupt, and the software they build will be corrupt. So if I copy let's go back to the reproducibility case. If I copy my environment to you, and the result of our compilation is the same, that doesn't mean it's not vulnerable to this attack, because my GCC and yours is the same, and both of them, they might be affected by this attack, right? Mm-hmm. So now I need to do something so we can see what our compilers are doing and watch the whole process of building them, right? And that's more or less the problem of the bootstrapability, right? So I'm working in that specific issue for RISC-V, and now a little bit more. So how does this work in Guix? This in Guix goes like building software from a very small seed and it goes building assemblers, if they can be called that, because they are super simple, the first ones. Then they build real assemblers, and then they build compilers and a small C compiler, and then it continues to build things until it reaches GCC and all the tools needed to use GCC, like the standard C library and all these kind of things. And then we start building the whole distribution, right? That's how Guix works. There are other distributions that do these kind of things, and I've been working a lot with Live Bootstrap, which is kind of a Linux distribution that uses the same principle, and they are doing a great job. And they are kind of the people that invented this way of doing it. Like most of the people that started doing this kind of, this bootstrapping part are working in Live Bootstrap because it's easy to make tests on this thing. So everything starts in something that is called the stage zero. And stage zero is kind of a set of small tools that build more complex ones. And then we reach a point that is a GNU mess, that is a copy of Guile, Guile, because it's the scripting language of Guix. So it's kind of a simplified version of Guile, super simplified. And then that has a C compiler written in C, and that is able to compile a bootstrapable version of TinyCC that builds another TinyCC that is upstream one. That one builds a GCC4, and that one builds some other versions of GCC. And finally, we build the whole distribution. So in that way, we can go back in time and making sure that we have reproducibility. So everything in this chain is reproducible. We can go checking all the compilers and make sure that they are built from source, and we can check which source we had, and what is the result of that. We can reproduce it, and also we can go back in time to see what was the very, very small seed at the beginning, and that's a binary file that is written by hand, and it's super small, and that can do just a few things, but that's enough to build the next one, and we can know all of them, right? So in a normal software distribution like Debian or whatever, and I know that they are working on fixing this, in Debian you just download a lot of binary blobs, and you cannot really know where they are coming from, right? Of course, they are coming from the Debian developers, they are trustable and all these kind of things, but you cannot know if their compilers are corrupted by this virus that I told you. So that's impossible to know. So that's why we are doing this bootstrapping thing.
Yeah. And at this time zero, it's the binary file that is written by hand. Therefore, the idea is that this can be reviewed thoroughly, and know there is no vulnerability.
Yeah, this binary file is kind of a hex file. You write it in, it's written in hex, and it has comments. That's the only thing it does. So you write instructions in hex, and it has comments. And it has to be able to run against itself, remove the comments, and convert it to a binary file. So that's it. And it's very short. I wrote the RISC-V version of the first one. This is called hex 0, the first one. And I mean, it's not easy to write, but it's not very long. It's this long. It's not a huge program. So you can more or less do it by yourself, and you can check if the comments and what the program does is exactly what they say. So you can just go compare one thing to another and say, okay, this is doing exactly what they are telling me it does. And I could take the binary and disassemble it and compare it with the comments and make sure that every line is exactly what it is supposed to be. And from there, everything is a little bit like that, right? Everything is kind of being written in a way that is easy to understand. I mean, it's not easy. You have to know about the instruction, the CPU, and this kind of things. But someone that has the knowledge can do it and can make sure that this is okay, right?
But the point is that it is auditable. It is reviewable.
Yes.
So it's
yes.
not
Maybe
like,
not by you, but by someone.
Yeah. Somebody who has the necessary expertise.
The knowledge. Yeah.
But basically, it's not like, oh, I totally trust you, and that's good.
Yeah. That's not the point of the thing. And these people at Live Bootstrap, they are trying to not even trust the kernel, right? Because when we explain about this whole thing, we are trusting things. In Guix, we trust the beginning of Guix, right? Which is you need to have some kind of a Guixy thing running in your machine so you can build everything using Guix, right? It makes sense. So in this Live Bootstrap, they trust the kernel because you need the kernel to run your programs. So they decided that they wanted to go a little bit further, and they started to write this whole thing for UEFI. so it runs in the how is it called, in the motherboard of your machine. It starts as a UEFI application, so it does everything, builds a mini kernel, runs the mini kernel, and then starts continues with the process. I don't know very well how they are doing that, but I just wanted to share that you can stress this thing as much as you like, right? You maybe you don't want to trust your UEFI in your machine because I don't know, it came by from the company already installed, so I don't trust them. So you could be pushing this further and further and further.
Yeah, of course. What would be the lowest you can go? So you would have to make your own hardware.
Yes, probably. Yeah, but how? Because if you make the hardware, they are going to go like the chips are already done, and maybe in the chips you have things you don't like. So, but at least what we did, I'm a very small part of this whole thing. It's kind of enough to make sure that this trust attack doesn't happen in the compilers. Yes, which is the easiest way, it's not very easy, but it's the easiest point of attack in this whole chain, right? You can attack the compiler and everything is done. Attacking the kernel is a little bit more complicated, or I don't know.
Yeah. But the point with this attack, which also Julia explained and you are doing now as well, is that it is everywhere. It will go everywhere. So it spreads to everything that is compiled.
Yeah, and most of the compilers we use, we didn't build ourselves, right? That's most of the problem.
That's the trick.
And you have to take them from somewhere else, and they have to be pre-compiled, so you know. And there's no way to know that in any program. There's no need to how can I explain this? There's no way to know that the binary you have is coming from the sources you were given. There's no way to know that. Like, you could try to disassemble it and stuff, but you cannot make sure that this is 100% matching the sources. And you need several things to do that, right? You need the reproducibility first, because if in your computer the result of the compilation is one and in my computer is another, and the sources are the same, where are the changes coming from, right? Mm-hmm. So first you need that, and then you need also the bootstrapability, because you need to be able to go back in time to fix this compiler issue, because maybe the compiler is the one that is adding extra instructions in some places, right? That could be it.
Yeah. From an end user perspective, where does this bootstrapability enter the scene? Does the user see this? Is the user made aware of this, or it just is something for
no, I wouldn't say the user sees any of this. I mean, if you are using a bootstrap, like a distribution that is bootstrap, the installation is going to take longer, because it's going to, like, it's bootstrapping your machine is going to go building everything. I don't think that's the case in any distribution. We have substitutes for everything, so you are not supposed to be running this. You could, but spoiler alert, it takes days.
I was about to say.
It takes days. So yeah, it's a very long process. So for the user at the beginning, I wouldn't say they are going to be affected by it, but this is like everything, like the fact that somebody is checking your house so it doesn't fall down. It doesn't affect you, right? Like an architect build it, and all the security measures, they don't affect you, but they actually do, right? You are more secure about it, and you don't think about it every day, but okay, your life is a little bit better. That's a thing.
Correct.
And that's why NLNet is funding this project and the things that we have been doing, because they consider, and it makes sense, that this is an structural thing in the software, like supply chain, if you want to say it this way. I don't like the supply chain thingy, but it's kind of it has been in the talk these days because of some problems in the NPM and stuff. So yeah, this is a critical thing in the software supply chain. So I understand that some people, that they have some funding, they want to fund this so people can be doing. We are super underfunded and stuff, but at least the last few years I've been working on this, and I've been getting paid for doing this work. Mm-hmm. And especially more focused in my case, I've been working in the RISC-V port of this. This was already built by other people. They built everything for x86 and it worked. So that's not my invention. I only worked in the part of porting this to RISC-V. And that's also interesting because RISC-V is an open ISA architect, like a processor architecture. So it means that you could even audit the processor if you really wanted. So that's why it is important for us, or we consider that we could combine the software part with the hardware part. That's interesting.
Yeah, because of course somebody who is really concerned about this supply chain would want to go all the way as secure as possible.
Yes, and also because this RISC-V being like open, it means you could build your own RISC-Vs, and in order to build them, you would like to have a tool chain that you make sure that nobody is going to inject malicious things in, so you could build your processor in a clean way. Imagine I'm the industry, right? And I'm a foundry and I want to make RISC-V chips and I want to have a tool chain for them. And I use free software tools or whatever. I need those free software tools to be built in a way that nobody's able to inject things to my tool chain. So my processor is corrupted with some things that I don't want, right? So it makes sense in both ways. The processor being the beginning of the chain and also being the end of the chain.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to ask more about that processor, if you don't mind. So, who is the kind of entity? What is the kind of entity that is really in need of this? Because of course it's not me and you. Like we are talking about.
You mean the bootstrapping or the?
No, like bootstrapping, but also the audit of the processor. So the RISC-V part. With all the bootstrapping associated.
That's a good question. I don't have a very good answer for it, honestly. But I know some people that they are working in universities trying to make RISC-V processor for example, bioinformatics, and they are using Guix. Like Piotr, for example, is the guy that get me into this bootstrapping thingy, and they are making a processor that has a million cores, and it's a crazy thing for bioinformatics. And they are using RISC-V for that, and they use Guix for the reproducibility of the process, so they can build from the hardware description language. They can build their things, and they are reproducible. So all this, they get all the benefits of Guix in the science environment, and they also will have like their processor is going to be bootstrappable, like all the software on it and all these kind of things. So for them, it's critical because they don't want the processor to be corrupt. Also, they want to have the full capacity to audit every single step of the process. That could be one example, but I don't know his job very well, honestly. So
okay, I see. But I get the idea. So we are talking more generally about institutions that have the resources and have a need for.
Yes, but maybe it's us in the future. It could be us in the future.
Good.
Maybe
point.
You imagine you have your computer is not running in a CPU and a hardware CPU anymore. It's running in an FPGA, and you could be able to make your processor a RISC-V processor that works in a specific way. You would like to be able to fix it or change it or whatever, and you would like to be able to audit all the process, right? That could be you.
Very interesting. Yeah. Okay, it sounds promising. You mentioned substitutes earlier. So because of course this process would take days, and substitutes, if I understand it correctly, it's basically the binaries that Guix provides, and as a user you install the binary, but if you want you can also build the whole thing yourself.
Yes, that's it. We even have a command for that is Guix challenge, so we could challenge the servers and see if they build the same thing we did.
Nice. So how is this organized in terms of the bootstrapability? So there is a server farm where it's bootstrappable.
I guess so. I don't know very well how they manage that. I'm not an infrastructure guy, but I guess that's what they are doing. For the rest of the substitutes, that works that way. But I guess all the substitutes and all these kind of things are built from the packages that we are building in the bootstrapping part. In fact, I think the package definitions of all the compilers in Guix start building from the bootstrappable part. So in order to build GCC, you need to build the whole chain of bootstrappable packages. That's the only way to reach that point. There's no binary anywhere, so that may explain everything. For the end user, they are going to get the substitutes probably of the bootstrapping path, but someone has to build that, and it means that someone has to build them from the chain, from the bootstrapping chain, right?
Okay, and this Guix challenge command, You are challenging how exactly
You build everything yourself, and then you compare with the thing that you would have downloaded if
but you
you
build the
went to the.
individual package. I mean, you don't
Yes,
create
I
a
think so.
whole
Yeah,
environment.
yeah, I think so. But if
Because
you probably could build everything. And in fact, I have done it. Like if you have Guix is source first. So if you don't, like, you can say no substitutes, and that's going to build everything from scratch. There's no magic there, right?
yeah, of course. Okay, that's very promising. Um, how is it in terms of testing this thing? Like you wrote this file you told me about.
Yeah.
How do you go about? Like, how does that environment look like?
It's a pain in the balls, honestly. Like it's the worst thing in human history. I don't know how to say. Like there's just the package definitions that depend on another package that depends on another package, and this goes to the beginning of time, right? To these bootstrapable seeds. And how do you test that everything is working? That you run the whole process, and somewhere it explodes. And if it explodes, you could generate like how can I say, like Guix does all this building of packages, like it downloads the sources and then it creates a folder for them, and it creates a set of environment variables and kind of a container, and builds everything in that container. And when that package is done, the result is stored in the store, and that container is cleaned out your system. So if something is broken in that chain, you could say, okay, leave the container, let me in, so I can be inside the container and try things that you can do. So that's what I will do, like build everything to a certain point. And if it explodes, then jump inside the container and try to work inside the container, looking at how it was broken and why. And the good thing of Guix is that if you already built something that you are not changing, you have it in the store. So the next time you run the whole process, you start in the latest point you left the process.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with this is that it sounds fantastic, but some of the steps in the process take hours. Like the step of GNU Mesh, it takes hours. And that's why now I'm working in trying to make GNU Mesh faster. So this step is not that long. Because in the past, if the step of GNU Mesh failed, you had to wait 4 hours until it was run again, and probably failing again, so you will wait 4 hours again.
Hence the pain.
And yeah, and we have been working in RISC-V. That means that our machines were very simple machines because we don't have like very powerful processors of RISC-V. And this last year, I've been like running things at night and then going to bed. And in the morning, I was checking if it was okay or not. And I've been doing this. So we had to be very effective with our changes, because if the change is not very well prepared and you are not very smart about it, maybe the next morning you have a failure and you don't want that. You want a new thing to happen, but not very new, right? You have to be very like careful with the change. Only one change, but you are sure that you made everything right, because maybe you make something that then is a syntax error and you say, no, this I didn't want. I want something that it explodes because something is broken, not because I did a change wrong, right? So you have to be very careful. And yeah, the process has been lengthy and kind of a tiring process, and we needed to spend many nights. But I think we are almost there to make Guix fully like bootstrapable in RISC-V. We are almost there in live bootstrap. We managed to do it, but in Guix we still didn't push that to master branch because we have some issues with the latest GCC in the chain. But we are almost there. And that's crazy. Like I didn't know about the RISC-V like 8 years ago or 5 years ago, and now we did this, right? It's crazy the amount of things you learn in the process, right?
Yeah, of course, that's amazing. When you do this bootstrapable process and there is something in the store, but something further down explodes, as you say, you go into the container. What does that look like? Do you have basically the equivalent of a backtrace? Because I imagine it's not that nice.
You could run the compilation process again and see how it exploded inside of the container. The container is kind of you have a shell inside there.
Yeah.
And that shell doesn't have access to the rest of your system. So it does have access to the inputs of that package. So you could just do anything the build would do. And also you could jump inside of the same container in a different shell, you don't activate it. So you could edit things and use the tooling in your system. So imagine a couple of files are compiled, but the next one that depends on them doesn't compile. You could inspect those compiled files with ELF inspection tools, check how they are built, disassemble them, take a deeper look, run again the compilation process after some changes. And the compilation process there, when you run it, is going to be the same that Guix would have run. So there you can see, I had to change this environment variable to make it run. So you can go to the package definition, change it there, and run the process again. So that's more or less the work. It has been kind of a complex work because we didn't have like many RISC-V machines. I had a machine, but it wasn't with me in my house. It was in a different place, so I had to connect to that through SSH and stuff. In my home, I could do everything like virtualized. In Guix, it's very easy to run virtualized software, so I could virtualize the whole process and check it. But QEMU is not perfect in RISC-V, and it wasn't at that time. We had random segfaults in QEMU. It was a kind of a complicated thing. Also, many packages at the beginning of the chain, they didn't exist for RISC-V, especially the old versions of GCC. They don't exist for RISC-V. They are older than RISC-V. So I needed to backport one of them, like the GCC4. I needed to backport to RISC-V. We removed some packages from the chain, like GCC 2.95. We don't have it anymore because we had to backport that too, and that doesn't make sense. So there were many changes in there, and we had to have a lot of fun because we touched in many old software projects, trying to make them compatible with RISC-V and all these kind of things. So this is a very interesting work.
Are there others who contribute to your kind of work? Like you make a change, who reviews it or who comments on it? How does that work?
Yeah, I've
is
been
there
doing
like
this.
A mailing list or something like?
Yeah, there is a bootstrapable mailing list. It's not a very active one. There is an IRC channel that is a little bit more active, and we have been working in a separate channel that was called Guix RISC-V, like Guix dash RISC dash like V, and we continue to talk there because we are a small team of people. We have like, there is Janneke, the author of GNU Mesh, and he's kind of the bootstrapping guy in Guix because he's a long-time Guix contributor and he's a very good programmer. He's kind of a legend of the free software world, so he's there. We have also like Andres Stikonas, that he has been working with me, especially, like also Janneke too, but I've been working hand-to-hand with Stikonas. He's part of the Live Bootstrap project, and being part of Live Bootstrap gives him like all the context because they were able to bootstrap a whole distribution, and he also worked in the state zero and all these tools that we use at the beginning. He's very knowledgeable about them. There is some people more, but those are the ones that work with me. And I also work with Brian Flaschner. He is one of the Guix maintainers, and he did some part of the packaging for Guix of all this, because I know how to package Guix things, but I'm not very, very, very good at that, and he is. So he's working on this kind of thing too. So we are not a lot of people, especially in this specific RISC-V case, right? In general, in bootstrapping, there are more people, but handful of them in general.
Yes, I see. Yeah, of course, because it's a niche inside of a niche kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it. And also you need like some knowledge that is not very commonly available. Like people in general, they are not able to write assembly code or read it or go and see some software explode and realize that is because your standard C library is not compatible with something you have. So you go patch it. Like people is not used to this kind of debugging, and I wasn't either. But I mean, I'm very stubborn, and so I managed to do it. But yeah, it's a very hardcore thing. Yeah.
But like from an outside perspective, from my perspective, it looks more like engineering rather than software development, at least the modern version of it.
Yes, and that's what the kind of thing I like, right? I'm an engineer. I studied that because I wanted. Nobody pushed me to study that. I just wanted to study this, and especially like applying this knowledge or this kind of thinking to software in general is the way of software I like, right? And I'm normally like also coding in Python and this kind of things, very high level, but but I do like understanding how the machine works. And these kind of projects, they let me like really know how the machine is working, how the build system works, how the things are linked together, and all these steps. Normally, when you are working in your software project, you don't think about them, but they are very interesting and they are very important to understand your job deeply, right?
Because you mentioned earlier Julien, so from a previous video, who is working with Nix. Does this bootstrapability you do ever get communicated with anybody in the Nix world, or anybody from the Nix world asks you, or is there any back and forth, if you know?
Yeah, not in my case. I didn't talk with anyone in the Nix community about it, but I know there are efforts in Nix also to reach this level of bootstrapability. I don't remember the name of the person that was doing this, but he started, like, there was a person, a specific one. I can see her face, but don't not remember the name. But I think she was working on building from TCC, which is one of the further steps in our process. We start with a very small seed, and they were starting in TCC, and they kind of managed to build everything from a trusted TCC. And I think they wanted to expand that to start to add these previous steps in the chain. They are more in contact, I think, with Live Bootstrap, because they are the most like, they are the people that is pushing this bootstrapable.org and all these kind of bootstrapping related projects. They are those. Mostly the work by Jeremiah Orians and Stikonas and all these people, they are the ones that are pushing. So probably they are talking more with them than with Guix. But they could come and copy our packages. It's as simple as that. They just translate them to Nix, and they could just do that. Or even talk with me. Hi, you can talk with me.
Good. Because I imagine, at least the beginning, before we get into Guile or whatever is specific to Guix, the beginning, I imagine, will be shared for everybody.
Yes, it is true that we use some kind of a Guile-related things at the beginning. We use Gas, which is a shell written in Guile, I think, and some kind of things like that, but they could be replaced with something else. Also, a very interesting part of the beginning is Mess. So GNU Mess is kind of a very Guile-y, right? Because it's kind of it's able to use Guile modules, so it's very Guile-y, but it's usable for this step of compiling TinyCC. There are ways to avoid it, but it's kind of the project that I love the most because it's a kind of Guile, and the bootstrapable part is a simple scheme interpreter, and I like working in languages and compilers and such. So this project is kind of very, like, it looks like very Guixy, right? But I guess they can still use it anyway. Like, doesn't really.
Yeah, very good. I think we covered a lot on this topic. I say we switch gears. And tell me a little bit about what else do you do with regard to free software, or with software in general, or with life in general? Like, what else do you do in terms of contributions?
Yeah, so I'm a freelance programmer, right? And a freelance engineer, if you like, because I also do some other kind of software-related things, but they are more like engineering. And I have I've been a freelance for like 8 years or so, but I try to use like this chance to choose what I do to make free software in general. If someone hires me, I send them the software and I send them in a free software license that we agree at the beginning. Probably it's going to be a very open one, like a Apache license or something like that, and I send the software like that. And I also teach a lot, and I go to companies and I teach whatever they need. Like, normally I teach in short courses that they are like on 1 week long, something like that. And I try to be very technical and very, very deep in my explanations, because in the end, with all this process and all the things that I study in my free time, I know kind of a bit about how interpreters work, how compilers work, and these kind of things. So I'm able to teach, for example, Python like in a very deep way, so people can understand what they are doing. I'm mostly into teaching people things like deeply in the understanding of things, right? So I can give, like, for example, an introductory Python course where people understand everything and they don't have to code by, maybe you have felt this sensation of coding by guessing and by feelings, like saying, okay, this variable should be available here, but I don't know really why this is working this way. So I try to eliminate all of that, because in the end, the programming language is written one way and it doesn't guess for you. It's not like you're not talking with an LLM, right? This is one way. It works this way, and there's no other kind of possibility of feelings and things, right? So I try to teach that way. I teach, I don't know, Python. I have taught Git, whatever, right? Whatever they ask me. And sometimes I've been teaching things that I didn't know. So they tell me, oh, I need you to teach this thing. So I say, okay, give me 2 months. I will learn it and then teach it to you. This is more or less one of the things that gives me the most of the money that I earn, because that is expensive. I mean, you have to pay for my 2 months and stuff, but it's not that expensive that people could pay, like companies can pay it. And also I also teach in sometimes it depends if the course comes in the correct moment of life, but I teach in government subsidized courses for the unemployed people, because I collaborate with a company here. And I've been doing this for, I don't know, I did that at the beginning many years ago for short courses. And these last 2 years, I've been doing like a very long course, like 500 hours, something like that, of teaching web development for people that they don't have a job and they want to change like their careers and stuff. Many of them, they are from abroad, or they came here, they didn't have the papers, they were kind of in an illegal immigrant situation, and with these courses, they finally, like at the end of the course, they have some practice in a company, so it's easier for them to get the papers. Or some others, they started working, I don't know, maybe I'm a waiter for 10 years and I am fired and I'm unemployed, and I always wanted to learn programming because I like web development and stuff. So I go there and I try to learn new things. And that's also part of my job. Like, most of it is teaching, communicating, and then, yes, I do programming and engineering, but I prefer to do it in the way that I'm doing it right now with NLNet. I define the project and I define my milestones. NLNet pays with when things are done, and I'm not enriching any company especially, and I'm enriching the society in general, right? That's what drives me most, right? Doing things that, because I have the interest in them, and I also think I'm doing something good, right?
Yeah, of course. And teaching in this way that you described, like from the ground up, it also gives them a certain confidence to themselves learn more. And hopefully, if you instill them with this ethos, to carry that forward.
Yeah, I also try to be very specific about it in my courses. I gave a course a couple of weeks ago, and I went there and I explained the thing, and I said, okay, now, free software. Like, we are going to spend 5 minutes of this course me teaching you what is free software and why it is important. And I also always mention like the goals of my company. Like, my company has a very ethical background, mostly because I left the company I was working for because of ethical reasons. I didn't want to do what they were trying to do. So I very carefully decide the things that I want to make or the things I want to be part of. So when I go and I give a course, I normally go there and say, okay, remember, this is an ethical company, mine. And this means I don't want you to use the knowledge that you now have to do things that I wouldn't have done, because that's against the purpose of my company, right? And I don't want to make them think the way I would, but I want people just to be aware that their knowledge and the things they do, their actions, have a result in the world. And normally the result you are looking for, you prefer it to be good, you prefer it to be aligned with your ethics. Maybe your ethics and mine are a little bit different. They probably are, but that doesn't mean that yours are worse. It means that you have to be aware of yours and act in your life according to your ethics. And that only with that, I think the world would have been a better place, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point, because it's not a matter of comparing the propositions, but of being aware of the consequences, which many people indeed don't consider.
Yeah, especially when you're working in a company, right? Because I remember when I was working in this company, people saying, okay, if the responsibility of this is of my boss, I will do it. It's like, dude, you know this thing is bad, but if you are not responsible of it, you will do it anyway. What kind of joke is this? Like,
that's the kind of dissonance that leads to all the atrocities we have ever read about in history and we know about in general.
Yeah,
Because it's like,
yeah.
oh,
So
I'm just following orders. It's the
yeah.
other guy. Yeah. Of course.
So in the end, yeah, I mean, if you are in a, I also like to say that if you, for example, to the people that are unemployed and this is their first job and these kind of things, of course, you're not going to do everything that is going to be aligned with you. And in the end, you have to take care of yourself first, right? But once, like maybe not the first month in the job, you don't say, no, I'm not going to do this. But maybe the second year in the work, maybe you're in a position so you know that you can be hired in another company, or you feel more secure about your life and your savings and stuff, then you can start thinking about that a little bit more. And this is not like someone could say, yeah, so you're only being ethical when it's convenient, and that's not the case. Like you have to be smart, right?
Yeah. And this is something that in the Greek tradition we have in Ulysses or Odysseus, the Odyssey,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
Odysseus wants to go back home, okay? But he is stranded on this island where there is the Cyclops, this giant with the one eye. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, Odysseus, if he was like, okay, fair play, he would be like to the giant, hey, let's fight man to man and see who wins. Then, of course, Odysseus would be destroyed. So he had to
Yeah,
use cunning for a little while, feint that he doesn't know anything, until he could make his escape. And I think that's
yeah,
a lesson along the lines of what you are saying now. Like, of course, have in mind what the goal is to go back home or to reach a certain goal, but understand that you have to take detours sometimes.
yes, and also that someone's like ethics can be a little bit not so black or white.
Hmm.
So you can say, okay, this is harmful, but there's things that are way more harmful. So there's a red line, of course, that you wouldn't pass. But until you reach that red line, well, you can continue to sleep maybe if you do things that they are not perfectly aligned with you and you are not a saint, right? Maybe you do things that you are not happy that you have done, but well, you can still continue to live with them. So you shouldn't just throw your career through the window because a very small thing that doesn't change much, right? Maybe if they ask you to kill someone or to develop a software that you are not aligned with because it I don't know, it tracks people around the world, maybe that's a no situation. But some other thing that it's not going to go anywhere, and are you going to risk your whole career and the chances that you can help other people in the future just because you did this small thing? That's something that people has to be aware of, right?
Hmm.
This is I see these days in the social media and stuff, people pushing like, no, this is unacceptable and blah 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 blah. Well, okay, there are things that are unacceptable, that's sure, but not everything that you are not perfectly aligned with is unacceptable. And also you have to know that some people that they are good people too, they don't think the way you do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is a very common thing that I am seeing every day. Like people from the, let's say, right wing people, they might be good people too, and the left wing people, they can have like a good principles and good ethics, and they are compatible most of the time. That doesn't mean that your point of view of the world has to be the only one that is possibly right.
Correct. Yeah, that's a very good point, of course, for everything in general. But specifically, apply judgment and not just have this formula, which is my view is
Yes.
okay, not my view is bad. You know, that kind of formula
Yeah,
will lead
that's
to stupidity.
yes, and using that, you like this tool of, I want to make the world a little bit better, or at least not worse in sometimes. So that's okay. That's more than enough, right? Your way of doing it, maybe it's a bit different from mine, but it's okay if your goal is that and you are kind of following it, right? You don't have to be super strict with yourself about it. And I have been in the past, maybe, but maybe it's better to be intelligent about what you are doing. And I think this free software world is helping us to be more aware of things, because we meet people from everywhere, and every person has a different context, and this context varies a lot from one person to another. Like in Guix, we have people from Israel, we have people from, I don't know, from India, we have people from Kenya. We have, and this is like also from the United States and many French people because the author of Guix is French. So this is a very interesting context where we can see the cultural differences and also understand that we have a common goal. And maybe some people is very conservative, some others are more liberal, and in Guix in general we are more kind of, I think, the most of the people is more in this liberal kind of thinking, or this modern open liberal kind of thinking. But it doesn't mean that this is in like unalignable with some person from the right. Like if you like free software and you like coding and you are respectful with others and you try to make the world a better place, that's enough. Like you don't have to be specific. And I see a lot of separation of people trying to push some discourses sometimes in the mailing lists and stuff. And I don't like that because I think we have more things in common than the ones that separate us, right?
Yeah, and I think when you have a maximalist view of your ethics in general, like free software ethics is minimalist in the sense that it doesn't ask too many things. When you have a maximalist view where it's like totalitarian essentially, where every part of society has to be exactly how I imagine it, then of course you are incompatible with other people. But when you have a minimalist view, you can tolerate all this diversity. People from different parts of the world, different cultural backgrounds, and of course different political inclinations.
Yes, and especially free software was designed this way, right? There's a lot of, like in the United States, we can see that there's many people, this kind of, how can I say, these Republican people that they love guns and all these things, they should be very aligned with free software because it's about freedom, individual freedom. And the people in the left, for example, in the United States again, they should be also aligned with free software because it is about, like, how is it called? Like, not the freedom of one, but the freedom of all. So both of them are very compatible with the principles we have. And what I see these days, and something happens, is that people that see free software, they say, okay, this is a leftist thing because it looks at freedom. It's like, but this is not like the people in the right doesn't look at freedom. They look at freedom with a different lens, but it is the same.
Yeah. Very good point.
And it was a huge, like in my opinion, it was very like Richard Stallman was very smart about this, like making this so simple that everyone can match it with their own views of the world. And this is what I think nowadays sometimes we don't understand very well, and that's why some software projects, they have these internal fights because you are more of this kind and there's more other of this other and whatever, and sometimes we are not seeing the whole picture, and that's a little bit of a shame in my opinion, right?
Yeah, of course, because then you have a maximalist ethics, and this of course conditions everything else you do, so you end up having a totalitarian view of the world. Just to be clear, totalitarian in the sense that it has to be totalizing, so it has to cover everything for it to make sense.
Yes. And also in the end that we make software, I want to be useful, right? And and many times I see this US-centric way of analyzing things, that you cannot use this word, you cannot say things this way, you cannot whatever because this offends people and stuff. And in the end, I want to be useful. And being useful means sometimes that you have to be useful for the ones that needs this usefulness the most. And maybe that's not the people in the richest country in the world. Maybe I should focus more in taking care of those that they don't have access to everything, right? Yes. And doing free software sometimes where everything is very US-centric these days, right? So I try to think more about the big picture, like doing things that work in every machine, not in the latest machine, making things that are compatible with other languages, being like speaking in simple English because some people maybe they don't have the access. Sometimes I try to speak also in Spanish or in Basque sometimes, because I try also to share that this is not only for people that speak English. And in some countries it's not easy to learn English, right? Yeah. It could be even forbidden. And these are things that people don't think about. It's like, now we are going to put like this pride flag in this project, and I'm totally okay with it. But maybe you are pushing out some people where the pride flag is forbidden, not because they like it to be forbidden, but because the country they live in, they had the chance to be born in, they forbid it. So we have to be very careful with these kind of things, and especially I try to be like more compatible maybe with these people that they don't have the access, they don't have the, I don't know, everything in the world. They are not the center of the center, right? Maybe we live in the outskirts of the center. Maybe in Europe, you and me, maybe we are not in the center of the center. Yeah, right. We are how did the other day I read about this, a person from Germany said in social media, like the poorer countries in Europe, and somebody told this person, "You are from Germany, right?" So this is,
of course, you can see already the assumption.
yeah, the poorer countries, right? So I try to look a little bit more to the poorer countries, and I'm in not a very poor country, but in the poorer ones, comparing with the top ones. So I think that the rest of them, that maybe if the list is this long, I mean here, right? But the rest of them are the most important ones we should help. And maybe the others can pay for the things. I don't give a shit. Like the ones in the top, okay, you're covered.
Yeah, good point. I imagine, but tell me just to be sure. So this kind of outlook where you want to help those who are less privileged, let's say, or with fewer resources or with more difficult access, does that underpin also what you do with the unemployed people? Because I imagine there you have a lot of people in that situation.
Yeah, that happens a lot. And I mean, in general here, the social, like, how can I say, the security people has in general is pretty okay, let's say. There's people living in the streets still, but in general, the government here tries to help people, and the ones that come to my courses, they in general they do have like let's say a decent life. So they live in a house, maybe in a precarious situation, but they live in a house, they can eat every day and these kind of things. But many come from Latin America, they come from, I don't know, Romania, they come from these places that they have a lot of immigration to Spain, especially because they learn the language fast in the case of Romania, because its language is very similar. It's kind of similar. And the people in Latin America, for example, they come here because the language is the same. And in some cases, they have some more of an easy job to get the nationality or get the papers and stuff. That's not true in every single country, but in general it is. And so these people, oftentimes they come in a very uncomfortable situation because they have familiar problems or they don't have the social network that we do have. So if I know that if I don't have, for example, I lose my house or whatever, that the problem is, I know that my family is going to support me. But if you are living abroad, that's not the case. I don't know. There's people in the last course, there was a girl from Ukraine that was moved here because of the situation in Ukraine. She didn't know Spanish when she came. She didn't know English when she came, and she studied English first. And in my course, there was she was able to pass the interview. I don't know how, honestly, but she was using enough Spanish for the interview, but she wasn't able to follow the course in Spanish because it was a lot of content and that was hard. I don't have issues trying to translate it to English and do it twice, these kind of things. Like the problems they have, they are not super heavy in the meaning that they don't have like a house, because if they didn't have a house, they wouldn't be able to come to the course probably. But still you see issues, right? And you see many things that, wow, in some cases the issues are not that simple in the end. So this specific case, me speaking in English is the easiest one, right? In other cases, they have other kind of very profound personal issues, and you have to be careful about them, and you have to pay attention to them. It's not that you need to do much. Just pay attention to them and be aware that most of the people, they live this kind of life, right? It is what it is. Like everybody has problems, but most of the people, they don't live in the best of the situations. And I'm talking globally, right? Especially maybe in your case and in my case, our life is kind of a comfortable life. We had the chance to study at the university, whatever we wanted. We had a good job. We chose to be more like a freelance and risk everything type of people, but that was our decision, probably, right? And we had the possibility to take that decision, and also we knew that everything was going to be okay anyway. But there is people that they cannot take decisions. They don't have the chance. They don't have the chance to study. They don't have the chance to risk, because when you risk things, maybe you don't know that everything is going to be okay. So and try to look at things in this way, right? That we are very privileged, but I mean, people around there in the world, they are also, how can I say, they are people too. Like, they are not stupid. They can study things. They can have access to things. And if they have access to very good free software, that's great, because they don't, like, their life will be a little bit easier, for example, right? That's my way of thinking. I would like to share knowledge, make it accessible. I like to share good software, make it accessible. That's more or less what I think that is my field of expertise, and my field where I can do something for the best, right?
Yeah. Very good. When you do this 5-minute lecture on free software, do you ever get any kind of response that is, let's say,
normally
pro or
no.
against, or they just listen?
Yeah, most of the times you don't get any response. Like, it's like, okay, this is this guy with his thing. He's going to talk. I'm going to disconnect for 5 minutes, and then we will continue with the course. But I think I'm very smart in the way that I put it, so I can bother people in a way that they pay attention. So in this last course, I was working like for a research institute where they wanted to, like, they are very near to science and also engineering. So they design things, but they cannot, how can I explain? It is not for profit. So they design things and then they build companies that use those designs to make profits, but in a separate way. So they are in a way, the goal of this research institute is to create new things that make more opportunities to the technology in the Basque country to be better, right? That's the idea they have. So they use a lot of tools that are very common in engineering studies, like MATLAB, or maybe you know it, like these kind of proprietary tools, but they are very near to the science, engineering, these kind of things. So I know they use that kind of thing, and I have used that in my studies, so I can pressure them a little bit, saying, okay, what happens if tomorrow MATLAB closes? Because it gets bought by another company and decides to shut down the product. What happens? We shut down too. Like, yeah, they are in that situation, right?
If MATLAB closes, yeah,
they don't have, like, they are caught by the balls, right? They don't have any way to overcome this situation. And that's why my course was about Python, but I wanted also to tell them how many things they do in MATLAB, they could try to move to Python and use them in that way. It's a hard process, right? To port everything. But I try to push their thinking to, well, maybe you should try to be more aware of your supply chain. As simple as that. You should be more aware that maybe they are doing this in hardware, right? They have a foundry somewhere, or they have I don't know, a steel industry in somewhere, and they ask for the pieces there. And they ask for the pieces there. They buy them from there. They make the orders like in thousands from there. But they are also having a second company just in case this one closes. Why they don't do that with the software, right?
Yep.
And it's the same kind of industrial mentality, and they are very industrial focused people, so they know. And they say, okay, I have this company that is selling me this system on chips, but they are from Israel, and maybe not just because I'm not. Imagine, this case is a real case. They told me about that. We are not like, we don't like the situation in gas and stuff, So maybe we should change the company, and not only because of that, because also at a political level, there could be a blockade to Israel. So my supply chain gets cut from one day to the next. And I should be aware of that, and I should be looking for alternatives. And they have told me this. So I say, okay, you do it with this, but you don't do it with your software. You don't pay attention to it. And in the case of free software, the good part is that if the free software project closes, you can continue with it.
Yep.
You can keep it by yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to make the library of, imagine I have all the scientific libraries we are using. We are going to copy them, have my own repository inside of my company, some people that maintains it, and we can continue for months until we find an alternative, or maybe we continue forever. So that's something that should be at least an escape plan. At least the plan B should be at least that. The plan A, maybe you want to use MATLAB because of this and that. Maybe we could justify it. I mean, in an industrial perspective. In an ethical perspective, maybe it's unjustifiable. But from an industrial perspective, might be justifiable. But only having that and not having any other option, that's not justifiable, right? Mm-hmm. That's not a smart industrial decision or business decision. So I try to push them this way, like, this happens, and they told me stories that explain many of these things, and they still don't do anything about them, right? Some guy told me that this research institute is in an alliance with many other things in the Basque country. I don't remember the name of the alliance, but it's a big one. And they when they built the new alliance, because they were in another one and they built a bigger one, when they did that, people from MATLAB, for example, they said, okay, no, now you are very big, so we're going to give you for free all the toolboxes in MATLAB so you can use them freely, right? 2 years later, the paycheck started to come. So now it's not going to be free anymore. So all the work you did in 2 years, now you cannot trust it because maybe you cannot pay anymore. And all the work is gone. You don't have access to anything. And they use a lot of proprietary tools. Mm-hmm. They have some other case. They are using some computer vision library, and then from 1 year to the next, the computer vision library's price goes 100% up. Can I pay that? Can I continue to pay that? And these are all cases in this research institute.
Up. What happened? Sorry. This happened again before. It has happened before. So 1 second. It should be okay. Hello.
I lost you. I lost you. You're frozen here.
Yeah, let me 1 second kick out the old me. It happened before. I don't know why this happens. Sorry. Yeah. So we are back. Yeah. Please continue. So basically, you were saying that they don't have a contingency plan for software.
Yeah, and when I talk with them, I try to take all these cases of things failing and where they had some issues with the software provider, and the price went up or whatever. So I pushed them in this direction, and then I explained, no, free software doesn't let you do this. Mm-hmm. So they start thinking about it more, and probably they don't have like the power in the company to change how the company works, but at least they are thinking about it, maybe at home, maybe in some other context. So I try to be like this, not only bothering people to make them think, but also try to be like positive about things, right? There's another option, and not try to be like, no, this is unethical and you shouldn't do. No, I don't try to impose things. I share some problems that people normally have, try to bring problems they do have at this very moment, and then try to create something on top of it so they receive things in a positive way, right?
Yeah. That's a good approach. What do you think is the reason for this ignorance? Is it ignorance, or is it by design, you think? Like, because somebody has to decide on this at some point.
I don't know. I don't know. I could try to guess, but for me it was very obvious. The first time I saw free software, I was like, okay, this is the thing. It makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Because I was upset with all this. For example, the CAT software we had to use in the university for being proprietary, not being able to install it in my device, and blah blah blah. So for me, it was very obvious. For them, I don't know why. I guess it's because life. How can I say? I have I know a guy, right, a friend that he works in antivirus companies, right? And he wrote a book about antiviruses and all the bugs they have and all the And in a talk, some person asked this guy, like, why don't they fix these things as they are so obvious in the antivirus? Why they are not fixing, like, for example, signing the releases and these kind of things? Why they don't do that? And his answer was very good. He said, because people lives in the today, in the now, the problem that they have now. And the problem that I have now is I have to fix this specific issue that it was assigned to me. And I don't have to think about all these other things that they are not the today problem. These are the more general problem, right? So these people that works in this research institute, they want to fix like the program they are working on, or they want to fix the robot they are working on right now. They don't want to think about the supply chain and all these kind of things. And those are the people that could push for a change in the company. So the ones that make the decision, they also want to fix the problem they have right now. I want the software that everybody has, MATLAB. Okay, buy it. I have to go and talk with the commercial from MATLAB and fight with the marketing guy to get the best price, but they don't think on the other possibilities, right? Because their problem is, no, I need the software that everybody uses because this is the industry standard and whatever. So everybody's thinking on their short-term issue and nobody thinks about the big picture. And in other, I guess, in other contexts, like industrial orders and stuff like that, that's more common because they are having very big cases of failure in the past. So, and they are very expensive things comparing to software. So they might think, okay, in this, my work is also to take care of this sort of thing, this contingency plan and these kind of things. But in the case of software, they don't think about it because I think they guess that the company is going to be there forever.
Yes, I see. Of course, like this local kind of focused thinking is understandable. And
Yes.
if you think about it, it's basically the same with what we discussed earlier with regard to Guix, where it's like, you want to contribute to Guix, you don't need to know the system, just focus on your package and take it from there.
Yeah, focus on your problem.
Yeah, exactly. But in the context of an industry, I imagine there is somebody who is kind of the strategist, whose job it is to think about exactly this sort of big...
Well, it should be, right? It should be.
Okay, but we don't know. Since you mentioned the Basque country, tell me a little bit about your place. So for somebody who doesn't know, where are we looking at when we look at the map?
Okay, so the Basque country is like a region that covers some area of the northeastern Spain and a little bit of the southwestern France. So it's there in the Gulf of Biscay, there in that area. So Biscay is the province where I live. It's one of the provinces in the Basque country. I'm living in Bilbao. I'm in Bilbao right now, which is the capital city of this province called Biscay. Vizcaya in Spanish and Vizcaya in Basque. So this is a beautiful place. It's like the greenest, probably one of the greenest places in Spain. Because Spain, I didn't think about this that much when I was a young kid because I thought everything was green, but Spain is brown in general.
Yes.
Probably like Cyprus and some parts of Greece too, right? It's kind of a brownish because it's a lot of heat, sun, and it doesn't rain that much. In here, it rains a lot. Nowadays, it's raining a lot.
Oh my goodness.
But everything is very green and everything is full of mountains. So in Spain, in general, if you look to the horizon, you can see the horizon. In the Basque country, that's not very normal. You will see, in the northern part of the Basque country, at least, you will see a mountain that covers the horizon for you. And that's probably very short. Like your sight is going to be very short, like some kilometers away, not that much.
Is that the Pyrenees?
No. The Pyrenees are also in part of the Basque country that crosses in the frontier between France and Spain. But I live in the western part of the Basque country.
Okay.
And so everything is full of mountains. They are not very high ones. They are like hundreds of meters tall, or not very high, but they are everywhere. So my city, especially, this is is surrounded by mountains, so it cannot grow anymore. Like
Nice.
everything goes to the mountain, and it's very hard to find an affordable house. Also because we have a huge issue in the world, but especially in Spain, housing is super expensive, and in the city is especially hard because we cannot grow really, right? It's a beautiful place. I like it a lot. It is a little bit different from one place to the other. If you go to Gasteiz, which is the Vitoria, maybe you know it by the Spanish name, but Gasteiz is the capital city of the Basque country. There is the political capital, let's say. When they decided that Gasteiz was going to be the capital of the Basque country, they thought this is going to be the political capital because Donostia, San Sebastián in Spanish, is the touristic capital because it's a beautiful city, and Bilbao is the industrial capital. So they decided to put it in Gasteiz. So there, everything is flat, like more flat, more brownish, not that much still, but more brownish. And there's kind of a line that crosses through the Basque country to the south, that everything is flatter, but so in that part is flatter. Some people also consider Navarra to be part of the Basque country. I'm not going to get into that kind of a fight.
Sure.
And also,
Navarra is the southern part.
Yeah, in the southern part there is another province by the Spanish distribution of things. That's another community, full community, not just a province. But the northern part, it is true, they speak in Basque. They have Basque traditions and stuff. So yeah, we could consider that part of the Basque country too. And the part of in France, they also speak in Basque, a kind of a French-sounding Basque, but it's Basque still. And it's very nice to hear because it's very different from the one we speak here. And yeah, there are 3 provinces in France that they are part of the Basque country. They are considered Basque country by the French too. And yeah, it's a beautiful place. We have a lot of relation with the sea because the coast is like a very long one, and there's a lot of shipping tradition and whale hunting and fishing. Whale hunting. We don't do that anymore.
The Atlantic, yeah. So yeah,
yes, we don't do that anymore. But it was very common. There were whales in this coast not that long ago, and there are songs about the last whale that approached the coast of the Basque country and these kind of things. We have traditional talks like songs and things about that. We don't do that anymore. But we inherited a tradition from that, which is like these small boats that you have to row. So we do this kind of competition of rowers, and that's a very Basque thing to do. We also have this kind of local sports like the pelota that is playing like with a ball against a wall with your bare hand, and the ball is rock hard. It's the hardest thing I ever saw. They also lift rocks and these kind of things. This is very, I don't know. The stereotype of a Basque person is lifting very big rocks and things. As you see, I'm a small man, so I don't do any of that. But yeah, that's a classic thing. Also, terrorism is kind of a very classic stereotype of a Basque person.
A joke on that is like, I don't know if it's true, okay, but basically somebody was telling me that on this exactly what you said, that when in Southern America they were doing these independentist movements, that basically if you trace the lineage of all those people who were revolutionaries, they are Basques. And
I mean, it could be. I don't know.
I don't know.
Many people in Latin America, they are Basque because there was a time that many people from the Basque country moved to Latin America, and they started with taking care of sheep in the mountains and stuff, because that was something that was very common here. And also one of the how is it called, like the conquistadores, how do you say that, like the people who conquered South America was Basque. And yeah, the Basque country has had a very long history of people that want to go to other places and start a new life there. And there was how can I say, there were residual languages in Terranova and these kind of places in America that had parts of Basque, because many Basque sailors reached those places for whale hunting and these kind of things. There was a law in Iceland. There was a law that you could kill a Basque if you saw a Basque in the street. that was legal to kill a Basque.
They still are whales.
The law was removed a few years ago, but it was a traditional law that they had, I guess, because of the whale hunting and the fishing and this kind of thing. So there are many Basques that moved around the world, especially to the Americas, and probably they are involved in these things. I don't know. I cannot say for sure, but many people from the ETA, the terrorist group that was acting here not that long ago, some of them escaped to Latin America. That's a known fact, and they were living there for long. And some of them they came back. I think that's the case of Joseba Sorrenaindia. I think the name was Joseba. This guy is an author now. He writes books and stuff, but he was part of this. He was looked after by the police because he was part of the organization. I don't know to what extent, but he's a very good writer, I have to say. I don't know. And I think he has a very interesting story because he left he escaped from the jail or something like that inside of a speaker box. They opened, there was some kind of I don't know, maybe I'm mixing with another one, but they gave some kind of a concert in prison, and the guy was put inside of the speaker and he escaped or something like that. I'm not sure, but there are many funny stories about this kind of things.
Yeah, I see.
I mean, as funny as the terrorism can be, right? In the end.
Of course. Yeah. Terrorism itself wouldn't be funny, but then, of course, we can still approach the world in a more lighthearted way.
Yeah, you have to, because here, I have to say the climate, the social climate wasn't very acceptable, in my opinion. There was violence was kind of an accepted thing for the society to see, that some people were killed in front of their children, and there is still in Spain some people trying to push this idea of terrorism, that they are going to come back because some people in the Basque politics were related with this movement and stuff, and they don't want to forget about terrorism. But in the end, terrorism that happened here most of the times killed people, Basque people in the Basque country, and we were the ones that were suffering it the most. And we were I was a kid, but still you could feel people being afraid of, maybe, for example, saying that you were rich, because the terrorists would go and try to ask you for money. That was called the revolutionary tax, right? Ask you for money for the cause. And some people were they had I don't know. People were killed in the street. Maybe, for example, people that were heroin addicts, they were killed in the street because they considered that they were or people they didn't want to have. And some policemen were killed. Politicians, local politicians of a small town, were killed just because they were politicians of certain party or other. Those were Basque in the vast majority, and people that was afraid of it was Basque people, and they are trying to push a message that the Basque people were okay with the terrorism. Nobody was okay with the shit, but probably most of the Basque people was afraid of it, right? And that's what happens. So the Spanish government have done very horrible things too. Torture, putting in jail people for 20 years that they only shared a car with someone, or they left a friend sleep in their home one day. What should you do, right? I go to your home and say, can I stay for a night? And you say, okay, sure. Yeah, but you don't know that I killed someone yesterday.
No, I don't.
And you go to jail.
Background check. Of course.
Yeah, you're not going to. So these kind of things have been done a lot. People that was in jail was jailed in very, very far away from their home, and that goes against the Spanish law, not our law, the Spanish law. So also, I don't know. It's a complex issue, and I'm not this kind of very independent, this kind of a person, but I see that we have seen things that were unacceptable in both sides, and I don't see some part of each of the countries, if you want to call them countries, both of them, try to fix the issues that we had. Some people is okay, we understood, like me, I understood both of sides did horrible things, and that's something we should start like forgetting and forgiving. But the reality is that many people is using this politically nowadays, and that's kind of I don't like it. And the majority of people that I know, they don't like the way this is being used politically. But the place is amazing. I mean, life here is great. You have the greatest food probably in the world. Everybody says that,
I know.
well, but the British don't say that. But we
at
we have
least they are self-aware, yeah, of course.
yeah. We have very good food. Like, it's very easy to go out in my city and find a good place for eating, and you can enjoy that. People is kind of, they are not going to approach you and talk to you most of the times. They are kind of a cold kind of people. But when you start talking with people, they are very, like, I don't know, approachable. Life is good. I can go to the mountain just on foot from the city center, and this is the biggest city in the Basque country, so I could just go.
So
on
when
foot.
we say on foot, we are talking about like what, 30 minutes?
Less than that.
Less
in 15
than
minutes, you start to touch grass.
Oh, amazing.
Depending on the place where you are, right? But in 15 to 30 minutes, you can start touching grass in just walking. Public transportation is good. Salaries are better than in the rest of the country. Things are more expensive too. But I mean, life is pretty much very good in the Basque country, in my opinion.
And you mentioned industrial center, Bilbao, and you also mentioned the tourism center, San Sebastián. So, of course, I imagine now this sounds like a rich part of the country. I mean, what you have there, the industrial and the tourist.
Yeah, I mean, in
but
general,
I want to ask something else. I want to ask something else, because historically, for there to be all these Basque people that were trying to emigrate and to basically find a better life, I guess, it must have meant that in the past life was much more harsh. Like, because of course in the past there was no mass tourism, pre-industrialization. Like, what would you do? You would herd the sheep, or you would go on a boat, basically. You don't have many options, right?
Yes. Nowadays, there's that differentiation, like the industrial part and the tourist part is starting to change a lot. We lost a huge industrial heritage here. We had a lot of like iron mines and iron industry here in my hometown. I'm not from Bilbao, I'm from a town that is very near from here, and it's famous because it had iron mines since the Roman Empire. So. But that doesn't exist anymore. We also built ships in Bilbao, but the shipping industry was cut down because they weren't able to compete with the Koreans and with the Chinese, and I don't know. So most of this industry is disappearing. Already disappeared, and many people is very angry about that because we are changing that to tourism. You probably know the Guggenheim Museum. That specific place where the museum is, that looks like a ship also, that was shipping industry, everything. And the river was completely contaminated by the industry we had in the riverside and stuff. That we don't have anymore. And that's a shame because like many of the companies that were like iron related and stuff, they're starting to convert to something that is a little bit less interesting for the workers. Like working in the iron industry, it wasn't great, but people came from other parts from Spain to work here to get some money. That doesn't exist anymore. Like, we are losing that, and we are selling our city to tourism. And San Sebastián, Donostia, that has been a great city in the touristic side because they have a beach. We don't have that. They have two beaches, and they are beautiful, both of them, but one especially. And this has been the city where the King of Spain was going for vacation. So imagine some luxury, French people going there for vacation, these kind of things. But now Bilbao is starting to become also like a very touristic place. And the problem we have with these two things is that the pricing on the housing is skyrocket. Like, for example, in Donostia, buying a house has become impossible for the people that are from there. So many people had to move away. And the rest of the Basque country, like I guess Gasteiz has the same issues, but the rest of the Basque country in many places is a very rural thing. like very small houses in the mountains or whatever, and that's why some people didn't enjoy the benefits of being in a city and having money, and they have to move or try to go to the Americas or try to do other things. And I also think it's part of the identity of the Basque person to go and to search for new horizons. But yeah, the people in the mountains, they didn't have the benefits of having industry and a good job and stuff, and most of them had to work in their house that was kind of a farmhouse. This is the classic baserri, right? This is these old houses that they had space for a couple of animals and also some field to work at, like planting things and stuff. That's the classic Basque way of living. In the inner part, right, in the coast, the classic way is to go with the sheep and fish and stuff. And that, I guess, that's the people that didn't have this economical level to be super happy in the city and stuff, right? So we have of both parts. We have had historically a good society, a high level society, like with money and stuff, luxury and stuff, and also like people that lived in the mountains, kind of isolated from the rest of the world, doing their thing, and that's how we maintain the language. It's as simple as that. If you live in the mountains, nobody talks to you and stuff, you can maintain the language. And that's why Basque is so different from one town to the next, because they didn't share the language that much. So you can move to one town to the next one and the language changes drastically, and all the verbs are different. For example, from one place to another, many words change. Of course, you can understand each other with a little bit of effort sometimes. But yeah, that's the richness is there too, because of these very separate towns, because of the mountains. And in general, the Basque country is not very easy to create, for example, a good rail for the train and these kind of things. So we don't have high-speed trains yet, for example, because of this and because of other political reasons, right? So these kind of, there are many, it's a variety of things, right? But the fact that we do have this very old language that is still there and working, and I will say in the best moment of the last century, it's amazing. Also, the dictatorship of Spain, they were like very aggressive against the languages in Spain, the Catalan, the Galician, and others, like not only ours. And some people lost the language. But still, there we are, like still having it, and people keeping it. I lost the language. My grandfather didn't teach the language to my father. But well, I went to the school and they taught me the standard one, and I can communicate with it, and that's a great thing. So we have some identity we're trying to keep and maintain.
And are there active efforts, like not just in terms of schooling, but are there artists who will do, for example, songs in?
Yeah, there are many people trying to use their identity and their language to make art. To like everything in the public sector, everything is translated to both languages, Spanish and Basque. There are still a lot of linguistic rights to be fulfilled totally, because maybe you talk to the police and they don't know Basque, and that might be a problem. Or you go to a doctor and they don't know the language. But we are going. I think we are doing better and better and better, and we are recovering a big part of that was still from us during the dictatorship, and even more. And we do have books in Basque. I had the chance to study in my university in Basque. So yeah, it's 1 million of speakers. That is if you had to, how can I say, classify the languages by amount of speakers, is in the high part, because the most of the languages in the world have less than 1 million speakers. So we could say we are kind of a big language, but a small one between the biggest, right?
Yeah.
And we should continue to keep it. Like things that are kept, like the fire. That's you have to take care of it to continue, right? And if you take care of it, it will grow, right?
Yeah,
and
like
this is
if you
our
don't
case.
have a language, you don't really have a nation. Not in the sense of nation state, just to be clear, but in the sense of you don't have your own culture, you don't have your own world. You will always belong to some bigger group.
Yes, and I think especially in the northern Basque country, which is the French part, there they are having a lot of issues with the Basque because the French government has had this imperialistic view of the world, of the Frenchness, right? And they didn't want to be more like, I don't know how to say it, more friendly with the Basque, and that has been an issue, and they have issues to teach Basque in schools because they have to make an exam later somewhere and blah 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 blah. And I think the situation could be improved. In the case on the Spanish part, well, we're doing better, I would say, in that regard, in the regards of the language, and yeah, we should keep the languages, especially those that are very special from a town, or that only a few old people continue to speak these small dialects and stuff. We should take care of those.
Uh-huh. And I think keeping your cultural identity is important also because of what you mentioned earlier with regard to people who have privilege and who take certain things for granted and people who don't. When you have this kind of cultural diversity, you effectively remind everybody that there are differences. So don't assume too many things. Don't be too quick to judge. And I think also from that perspective, it's helpful. Of course, also from the perspective of respecting what you have, your values, and what your ancestors did, and continuing that tradition.
Yeah. And we have a very obvious case of this. We have a community of people that they are streamers in Twitch and they use Basque, and we often discuss, and we are becoming friends because the Basque country is not that big. And and when you write a very normal word in Basque, which is dago, which means this is somewhere, right? The act of being somewhere, right? Dago, it's a racial slur in the United States, so it's always blocking us from using that one. And also, I think that Dago, I'm not sure about what it means because I don't give a shit about this kind of a slur, but I think it's related with the people with a Spanish heritage somehow, so it would be something we use against ourselves. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but it's very interesting how these kind of platforms, they are not prepared for Basque, for example, and this as easy as just letting us choose the language of the stream to Basque, or small things that people here are very angry about, but that's the reality of the big part of the world. And when we design things, we should take care of those. And being here helps me take care of these specific issues these people have in general in the world, and we do have, especially in the Basque country. So that's an interesting thing to include in your thinking, right? How the rights of people have been not being fulfilled for a long time, like in the going to a doctor, using software, whatever, right? That's very enriching.
And it's exactly that. It's exactly this. Like, if you don't have awareness of something, you cannot understand it. You won't have the intuition for it. You won't even think about it. But if you have awareness, then of course it's like, okay, this, and then you can anticipate other things. You can be like, well, let's think about those people.
Yeah, and it also gives you a very good view of the world, right? Nowadays, people call fascism everything, right? Oh, Trump is a fascist or whatever. Well, guys, we had a fascist dictatorship here not that long ago, and my parents tell me stories of that, and that has nothing to do with what's going on in the United States right now. Maybe in the future it could become whatever else, but at the moment, just someone telling you blah 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 or saying these stupid things he says in public, that's not fascism yet. So let's call things by their name, right? This having talk with people that are actually suffering of something by these kind of things. That my parents had to sing the Spanish, how is it called, the official chant or this thing in the school every day, or look at the Spanish flag and look at the Franco's picture in their class. They were taught to be Christians they were forced to be taught in a Christian way, and that is fascism. That is it. My grandfather lost his language. Some people were hit in the street by the police because they were talking one language. That is it, right? And it gives you perspective just thinking about it, right? And in many countries this happened not that long ago, and yeah, I think that this new view or calling everything fascism or whatever that is kind of disrespectful for the people that are actually living in a dictatorship like that, right? Like, oh, they are suppressing my words, fascist, Twitter is fascist, no, it isn't. It doesn't mean it is right.
No,
Doesn't mean
but
it is
there are
good.
levels to it. And
Yeah, of course.
when you use certain concepts that have a meaning historically, when you use them willy-nilly, ultimately you don't know what you are describing. You are using one word to describe something that word doesn't describe. And then, of course,
and if you use it so broadly,
exactly.
if you use it so broadly, it starts to lose the meaning, right? And we should be aware that, like, dude, this is important. This shouldn't lose its meaning. Right?
Very good, very good. I say we close on this note.
Yeah, great,
We spent
fantastic.
Close to 2 hours again.
Oh,
yeah, so that's good. But I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Please send me any links you have so that we include them in the description of the video. And good luck with everything.
Yeah, same. It was a pleasure to talk with you. I really like the way you put things, like you are very thoughtful about things, and the way you share things in your blog. I didn't know about you a few months ago, but since I discovered you, I really like your content, even though I'm not an Emacs user. But
We didn't
that's another story.
This because then we didn't talk about Emacs, because then you would learn about the Greek terrorism. No, I'm kidding. Of course, I'm kidding. It's fine to use whatever you want.
Yeah. Thank you, Prot. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I will close and then stop the recording and then upload it.
Okay. Bye. See you.
Take care. Goodbye.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye.
So closing and stop recording. Take care, folks. Goodbye.